Hello and welcome to Talking Live. I'm Dr. Robbie Ludwig out of Starshot Studios in Times Square, where we talk about the topics you want to hear about. And we are doing a special today about the DACA debate. It's been in the news. I'm sure you've heard a lot about it. And we are going to be interviewing a veteran immigration attorney, Frieda Goldstein, out of Pozo Goldstein, who works both out of New York City and also Florida. And we also are going to interview a dreamer who we are going to refer to as D or Dreamer because we want to maintain her privacy. That's how sensitive this topic is. So thanks for joining us. Feel free to weigh in. We want to hear from you. And Frieda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know this is something that you work with day in, day out. Can you explain to everyone, because maybe it's possible that not DACA is. What does DACA stand for?
Sure. DACA is a program which the acronyms stand for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
Okay.
It's basically a program to protect children that entered the United States by no choice of their own, with a parent or a guardian before they were 16 years old.
And where did this DACA originate from? It just didn't originate with President Obama, right?
No.
There's a history to this program.
There is, correct. So even as far back as President Bush, the presidents have been trying to come up with a comprehensive immigration reform to benefit people who have been here undocumented in the country. As we know, it's quite an issue. And so President Obama tried to get his bill passed through Congress, which he was unsuccessful at. So instead, he came up with DACA, which is an executive order, which grants basic rights to the children that fall under this category.
And so that's in part why some people have strong feelings about it, people who oppose DACA or are not in favor of DACA because it was approved of via executive order. But it also made this program vulnerable, right? Because when the new president came in, there were changes that were made. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about the current changes that President Trump made to this program and what that means for the dreamers.
Sure. So President Trump, in his campaign promises, did promise to end the DACA program. And so in an attempt to live up to his campaign promises, he did actually end the program on September 5th of this year.
So what does that mean, ending the program? What does that mean for the dreamers? And when I was doing research for this, it gave a number of how many people we're talking about. So we are talking anywhere from 700,000 dreamers to 1 million dreamers. So that's a lot of people that this could impact.
It sure is. So what it means is that people who are already in the program, if they have a date, so the DACA program ends every 2 years. You need to renew it.
Okay.
If you've already been in the program, you will not lose your rights until your date, the date that's stamped on your card, but you cannot renew it after September 5th. People who have not signed up for, or they will not be able to renew it. That means they'll fall out of status, as they say.
So that must create a lot of anxiety. And I think what's really important is that people understand not everybody qualifies to be a dreamer. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about the qualifications. Who can be a dreamer? Who cannot be a dreamer?
Sure, that's very important because in order to qualify for DACA, the program, the child, would have had to enter the United States before 2007.
Okay.
So it can't be a recent arrival. They had to be under 16 at the time. And they also have to be either enrolled in high school or in a GED equivalency program. They also cannot have a serious criminal history. And they really are children who were brought here and they're going to school, they're good citizens, and they don't know any other life because they did come so young.
I think this is a perfect time to segue into the dreamer that we have, and we have her faced away from the camera because we want to protect her identity because her status is vulnerable as a result of the current status of DACA right now. So thank you, Dee. We're going to refer to her as Dee for dreamer. Thank you, Dee, for spending time with us. Can you give us insight into what this status change in DACA means for you and your family?
You know, Dr. Ludwig, I'm, I guess, one of the lucky ones because I was able to renew my work permit card, which I'm able to renew under the program, and I renewed it early this year. So, you know, when President Trump announced his decision to end the program, it was like shocking for me, thinking that, you know, who am I to be this lucky, and now other people who don't get to renew are just face more with that shock than I am.
Yeah. Did it make you feel, so I hear you feel fortunate that you are in a more fortunate position than many of your fellow dreamers, mm-hmm. but did it make you feel anxious, depressed, or angry?
Yes, and I get asked that question a lot from friends, colleagues,
mm-hmm.
But it's as sad as it is to deal with that or deal with those emotions. You know, life goes on, and you have to get up and mm-hmm. continue.
Do you feel frightened for your future, that you'll be sent to a country that really is not what you ever considered to be your home?
I haven't been there in so many years, so yes.
Yeah.
And since I've been here, I have never gone back to my country, so.
Would you describe yourself as more a political refugee, somebody whose family left the country because of safety issues?
My parents made that decision
yeah.
for me. It's you know, they didn't think that they could make a good life, or
uh-huh.
That they would be able to take advantage of any opportunity in the country. So that's why they made the decision to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they were here and they had settled, for them it was, you know, better that our family remain here.
Mm-hmm. And it certainly opened up opportunities for you. Do you feel differently about the United States as a result of this shift in DACA? Because many people who are part of the Dreamers program were not known. They couldn't be identified. So in some ways, their identity was safe. And now as a result of the Dreamers program, right, Frieda, that they are known. So they are identified. And wherever they are, whether they're in a school system or in the work program, they could be found now. So in some ways, the Dreamer program is like a faulty promise, right?
That's right.
And made these kids more vulnerable.
That's true. A lot of people had that fear when they did sign up initially,
yeah.
and their worst fears have come to light. Now the government, Homeland Security, has their names, their addresses,
yeah.
everything about them, and so if the program is not continued, they are subject to deportation, and that's a very frightening.
And also it's costly.
Prospect.
I mean, I read somewhere that really to deport these dreamers and their families would cost billions of dollars. Is that accurate?
That's what I've heard as
yeah.
well, yes.
So that seems awfully expensive.
Yes, more than it would be to keep these people working in the program, paying into Social Security. The government will lose a significant amount of money.
And not only that, I think it is fair to say that the dreamers that we're talking about, they're in law school, they're in medical school, they're in the Army, they're in the military. So they are people that are contributing to society in a pro-social way and love this country. Dee, would you describe yourself as someone who loves this country, or do you have mixed feelings now as a result of what's going on?
No, this is home for
yeah.
me. I don't know anything else. I think if I went back to my country, I'd be a complete stranger there. I don't know how life is there, or I don't doubt that I could adapt, but it's like being kicked out.
Yeah.
Way, you know, so.
Yeah, I mean, you, for all intents and purposes, are culturally American. You were raised here in this culture. You're a product of this culture. But to be fair, you know, some of the people who have feelings against the DACA program, say however well-intentioned this program is, that it was a clear abuse of executive authority. There are people who take that position, and they say that it encourages illegal immigration. What do you say to that?
So I think it was a last resort that President Obama tried to implement the DACA, and he tried passing it through Congress, as did President Bush before him. It just wasn't working, and he was trying to solve the immigration crisis that we are having in this country.
Yeah.
So many people are undocumented.
Right.
And at this point, to encourage immigration, that's not the case, because you had to qualify for this form of, I will say, relief from removal, or this program. You had to have entered the United States before 2007. So people who entered after that time are not eligible for it.
So I think that's a really important point. So people coming into this country are not eligible for the DACA program.
That's right.
Because it's only up until 2007.
That's right.
Okay.
And you had to be under 16 years old.
And you had
It's very
to
specific.
meet an age qualification. And also, you can't commit any crimes. These are not criminals. And I think it's important to say that, you know, from what I'm told, these are people who are really contributing to society in an important way. And I know I received a notice where medical schools are really worried and upset because they have DACA medical students, and they're concerned about what's going to happen. Where are things at right now?
So President Trump, when he made this decision on September 5th, urged Congress to come up with a plan within 6 months. However, last week, he kind of changed his position. It's been going back and forth a little bit, and he's actually asking, in order for him to go forward with the new immigration reform, he's asked for a number of things that are, I guess, more anti-immigration than they had been in the past, as far as funding for the wall that he's been talking about, adding immigration judges and deportation officers, and just limiting the number of legal immigration.
So is it really a non-starter? I'd like to think that maybe we could resolve this. What is your feeling
It's
about
really hard to
Congress
say.
coming to some kind of agreement? They seem to have a hard time with that.
I think so. And then with the new specifications that President Trump just added, I don't think that there's going to be a resolution.
Is there wiggle room, do we think?
Well, that's for time to tell, because
Right.
as I said, he keeps going back and forth. He softens his position, and then he seems to go back to a more
Okay.
hard-lined version. It's hard to
Because
tell.
I think the backlash, if something is not passed, would be huge.
Sure.
Because this pulls at the emotional heartstrings of the American people, because part of American identity is that we are a country made up of immigrants. And, you know, we like to think of ourselves as a multicultural nation, and that's what adds to our beauty and our perspective. So it will be really interesting to see what happens. What do you think people, what do you think the Dreamers are worried about right now?
Well, I think that their fear is that they're going to fall out of status. They will no longer have legal status here. And now the government knows where they live, and they're going to be facing deportation. Someone knocking at their door, coming to say, okay, it's time to go out.
What can people who are currently on DACA, what do they need to know or do after President Trump's announcement? Is there anything they can do to protect themselves?
Well, you know, one of the things that they have to do is keep up on the news, keep looking and checking what's going on, because it is changing daily, weekly, as I mentioned. And another thing you could do is you can contact your local representative, get involved, make phone calls, send emails, send letters.
And this is on both sides of the aisle. So we just
Correct.
want to point out that, you know, we are trying to be apolitical here. We are just trying to provide information and details in a way that hopefully everybody can understand. And also they can contact you. We'll have information about your website and where you operate. And we'll have information about where people can find their local representatives. So if they want to be part of the solution, whether they're independent, Democratic, or Republican, that everybody can get involved. But so people can contact their local representatives and state what?
They can state their concerns. Either they're concerned with the current immigration policy, or they're opposition to it. You're free to express your opinion, and that's the beauty of the country.
And hopefully people will listen. How do you think we got to this point? As an immigration attorney, you're well versed in all things that legally have to do with immigrants and what they face.
I think that just the fight between the partisanship, the parties, they just couldn't come to an agreement, and it's just reached the level that there's so many people here who are undocumented that something had to happen, and now the backlash we're facing.
So you think this is a backlash based on just politics not being able to come to some kind of an agreement?
That's my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Dee, any thoughts for your fellow dreamers out there who might be nervous? Do you have any recommendations for them or any thoughts?
I think I would, if I can make any recommendation, it would just be, you know, to keep up to date and realize that, you know.
Is there a website that, because, you know, we all know that there's websites and websites, where to get information. Is there a website where they can keep up to date? Would you direct them to one place?
I wouldn't. I would just always, you know, be informed and don't always go by what other people say. And then you can keep up to date and figure out for yourself what it is that, you know, what you feel comfortable with.
So be informed, be proactive as an individual for yourself. Are your parents worried about what their fate is?
I think they're more worried for me. I think but part of them probably feels bad because they're very sensitive when it comes to that topic. But you know, we're a strong family, so.
Do you try to think ahead and imagine what will happen? How do you think this will play out?
I don't know. I don't know. But I think I've always grown up with that, so I just keep going.
So you've grown up with the anxiety of not knowing what your fate is or feeling like you're vulnerable?
In a way, yes. It's like something that just follows you.
Okay.
But I guess that's why you got to be grateful for what you have.
That's amazing. I think probably vulnerability of not knowing what their fate is. Sure. And that's where you come in. What have you noticed with your clients who are dreamers? How do you try to advise them?
Well, it's been difficult because all of a sudden they're facing the end of what they had for the past several years, and so we're looking into other options right away. There is a desperate
there's a time
feeling.
Crunch, and it's uncomfortable.
Sure.
Yeah. I really hope that something is figured out so that we can support the people who want to be in this country and love this country, and you know, find a way in the future to make it comfortable to, you know, protect ourselves from illegal immigration if that's what we need to do, and help people come into this country legally. And I just think that's what America is really all about. It's about having a multicultural experience, and we all started out as immigrants. So thank you so much for joining us. And is there anything that I've left out that you feel people should know?
You know, there was one point that Dee made that I thought was interesting, is to not listen to people in the community. Don't rely on other people.
That's
what
a
they're
great
seeing.
point.
Look at the news, look in the newspaper, look online at the USCIS website, not necessarily people's opinions.
Okay, and can we put that website up to this show?
Yeah, that's the government website for
Okay.
all immigration now.
All right, so we are going to have all of these websites available so that people can get online and figure out how to advocate for themselves and get the most up-to-date, credible information. Thank you, Frieda, for being
Thank you
here.
for having me.
Thank you, Dee, for expressing your feelings and helping us understand the dreamer position. We really appreciate you. And thank you, as always, for joining Talking Live. We love you guys, and we will see you next week.